Top five.
Ladies and gentlemen, how we doing? Welcome to the countdown. You know what time it is. It's time for the #1 sports ranking show. We got a great episode today, man. We're ranking the top 5 Super Bowl contenders in 2023.
Hell yeah, YouTube. We're back with another fire episode, ranking the top 5 Super Bowl contenders in one of the pivotal seasons in NFL history. So we're going to go ahead and break that shit down.
Absolutely. Got a lot on the line going into this, and we got 5 great contenders here for y'all. So getting right into it, starting us off with number 5, we got a team that was actually the preseason favorite last year in the Buffalo Bills. They were a team that dominated right out of the gate, proving people right and assessing them as the top dog, but they kind of fell off at the end of last year, and a lot of people are now down on them. But let's think about why they fell off, Brandon. All right, first of all,
turnovers.
Starts right here.
Yeah.
All right, Josh Allen's elbow clearly wasn't 100%, didn't allow him to play at his full level. He started turning the ball over more and more, a little uncharacteristically, a little characteristically. We're hoping to see him grow as he gets another year under his belt here. And then another big factor is Von Miller. They brought him in to be their premier defender in that defensive front, help make an impact as he did throughout that first half, making big plays all over the field every single week, it seemed like, especially in that big Chiefs game where he was harassing Mahomes at the end, got them that big win in the regular season, which was kind of their last big win of the year. And we saw Miami light him up with a backup quarterback in the playoffs. We saw Joe Burrow put him to sleep in the playoffs without Von Miller out there. So when Von Miller is there, it's a big difference. Now, obviously, he's coming off a second ACL injury. He's 30-plus years old. But if he is healthy, that team could be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, Von Miller is the leader of that defense. And the way that he was playing at the beginning of the season, it was defensive MVP calibers type stuff. So it's unfortunate to see him go down. That was obviously a big hit to the defense. And like you said, Rob, when it got to the playoff times, like it's hampered the Buffalo Bills for the last 3 to 5 years, they just have not been able to get through that AFC gauntlet. And unfortunately for them, the AFC continues to get better and better and better, and their division has gotten significantly better with the step up from the Dolphins and a major step up from the Jets as well. So it's going to be tough not only to win that division, but it's also going to be tough just to be the AFC champion. And fortunately for the Bills, hopefully those tough playoff woes can finally turn for the better, and this could potentially be the season that does happen.
All right, seems like they got some good karma coming at some point with the DeMar Hamlin stuff, the Buffalo trying to get over the hump for the first time, and hopefully get past these bad vibes from training camp with Stephon Diggs and all that bullshit. So moving on to number 4, though, we got the only team without an elite quarterback on this list, Brandon, and the San Francisco 49ers.
I hate saying the 49ers are a system team, but they keep getting the job done with mediocre level quarterbacks. And part of the reason why is their offense is great at each level: left tackle, tight end, running back, 2 really good receivers, and obviously an elite one in Deebo Samuel. So, I mean, they have a lot of weapons on the offense, but the head coach is an offensive mastermind, potentially a top 3 offensive coach in the league. Actually, he definitely is a top 3 offensive
100%.
coach in the league. And that team does a good job with their push-pull effect. Whenever the offense starts to sputter, that defense plays out his mind. And whenever the defense starts to sputter, the offense puts up 30-something points. So they just done a great job of constructing a team that is very, very well-rounded. And obviously the NFC is probably weaker than it's been for quite a while. So they have a step up against their competition. So it could be a year that is between them and that team in green that they're competing with to potentially make it to that Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of AFC teams that we could have put in this top 5 list. I mean, you go down the list, there's a lot of Super Bowl contenders on that side of the bracket, but the fact that there's not that many on the NFC bracket just helps the 49ers' chances. And I mean, even last year with 3 of their quarterbacks getting injured, 4 technically in that NFC Championship game, they still made it all the way to the NFC Championship, and there's really no reason to think they can't do it again. It's a team that still has all pros and pro bowlers all over the offense, all over the defense at every single level, and as long as they just get some consistent quality quarterback play out of Brock Purdy, they're empowering him now to feel like he's the man, feel like this is his team. You know, they have a great system, like you said, great play caller in place. They have a lot of pieces that are championship caliber. And when it comes to the playoffs, we've seen a lot of games come down to one referee call or one thing here and there. When you got a guy like Brock Purdy, we've seen a lot of great inspirational stories in sports, from Tom Brady to all these different comeback stories. You see the Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick of the draft, go on to win the Super Bowl. That's a hell of a story that the NFL might not be so opposed to. So don't sleep if they end up catching a good break or two in the playoffs as well.
I mean, they're a contender every single year. Unfortunately, they lost the defensive coordinator, DeMeco Ryans, to the Texans. He's obviously the head coach there. So that's going to be a big hit for their defense, but this team always finds a way. And we think they will once again in 2023, 2024.
Yeah, they lost Robert Saleh before, didn't skip a beat,
Yep.
lost DeMeco Ryans.
Good
People
point.
are expecting the same kind of thing. But getting into number 3, a team that didn't lose their defensive coordinator in the Cincinnati Bengals. He's been a big factor in their success over the last few years. A lot of people want to talk about Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. That core is still all in place.
Yeah.
They did lose some players in the secondary, but keeping that defensive coordinator is such a key component because he has done an outstanding job in these big games, in those matchups against Kansas City, where they've pretty much been the only team that's able to beat them consistently. So if you want to talk about a threat to the reigning champ, there's no bigger threat than Cincinnati. The team that's 3-1 against them only came a last-minute penalty away from being 4-0 against them potentially. So this is clearly a team that's capable of beating the top dog, and they have all the pieces in place. And when you talk about Joe Burrow, come on, man, he's a proven winner. This guy oozes confidence. He helps that team. He leads that team to where they've never been before, taking them to heights that they've never reached. And it only seems like a matter of time before he's able to conquer it all.
Yeah, if there's one quarterback that gets hurt in the preseason, I'm not worried about them finding a way to overperform. It's going to be Joe Burrow. He just has that moxie, he has that confidence, and he obviously has the playmakers around him and the system around him. So that offense is going to take care of business. Never really worried about them. The problem with the defense is, unfortunately, they lost both of their safeties last year in Jesse Bates and Von Bell. That's going to be a major hit, but they did draft a safety early in the second round last year, the late first round in Daston Hill.
Yep.
So he's going to be a big replacement for them. I think they also got Nick Scott back there, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be interesting how Lou Anarumo works with that defense. This is going to be a lot of new faces in that secondary. But they still have that linebacker core. They still have plenty of talent along the defensive line and the edge. So that defense is going to be able to hold up as long as they can make sure that teams don't score as much as the Cincinnati Bengals, then they're going to be in a really good spot once again.
Absolutely. So getting into number 2, we have the reigning defending Super Bowl champion in the Kansas City Chiefs, Brandon.
Another season, another time where the Kansas City Chiefs will continue to be a contender. Everybody thinks they'll officially take a step back. That's probably not going to happen again this year. Doesn't matter they have new faces in the wide receiver room. They're still going to produce. Doesn't matter that Kadarius Toney is injured once again. They still have guys that are going to step up, a la Justin Ross, maybe Rashee Rice, a la maybe the punt returner last year, Sky Moore. So they got a lot of weapons still on the offensive side of the ball. At the end of the day, they got Patrick Mahomes and they got Travis Kelce. So the offense is going to handle business. That defense looks really good. They continue to stack up at that cornerback room with 7th-round picks, 6th-round picks, UDFAs. They still make big plays. They still outperform. So we're going to see the cornerbacks do what they do. So this team's still in a really good position. The AFC West can be really good, but it's probably not going to see a lot from the Raiders. We'll see what the Broncos do in their first year with Sean Payton. And the Chargers are going to be a problem, but I still think the Chiefs are the big dog in that division, and they're still going to be the big dog in the AFC this year.
Yeah, we know why the Chiefs are near the top of the list every year, right? Yep. You said it. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Andy Reid. When you have those 3 pieces in place, 3 surefire Hall of Famers, it's going to be hard to take them down. And so no one here is doubting the Chiefs, right? There's a lot of reasons why they're, been to 5 straight AFC championship games, been to 3 of the last 4 Super Bowls, have won 2 Super Bowls in the last 4 years. There's a lot of reasons why they're the Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl again this year. But there is a reason why they're not our favorite to win the Super Bowl this year, okay? When you talk about the NFC versus the AFC, that obviously has to play into effect, right? There's a reason why in the last 20 years, not a single team has repeated as Super Bowl champions. Is there going to be a team to do it? Sure, Kansas City could be that team, but obviously it's very difficult to go back to back, to have that motivation every single week, to get those guys ready every single week, to avoid injuries throughout the season. A big part of Kansas City's success last year was the fact they didn't have many serious injuries going into that Super Bowl. And so obviously Mahomes had the ankle injury. He's not really human, though, so it didn't even affect him. But for the most part, they were very healthy. It's hard to expect them to have that kind of health again. And so you've taken all those factors, especially with an aging tight end like Travis Kelce. One injury to him, they're not really prepared. They're kind of in a vulnerable position to replace his production if he were to go down. And so this is a team that has a lot going for them. If you promised every team's going to be fully healthy throughout the year, It's hard to pick any team over the Kansas City Chiefs, but we've seen time and time again how the Vegas favorite, how the reigning champion isn't able to get back to the big game because of those key components.
Yeah, Rob. I mean, you look at the roster, really good starters across the board, but the Chiefs are suffering from some depth issues this year. You know, obviously they pay a lot of money to Patrick Mahomes, a lot of money to Travis Kelce, a lot of money to that great offensive line. So they have to be very careful with, you know, overdoing it this year in certain games because that depth really isn't 100% there. Chris Jones held out during the preseason, so maybe the leader of the defense also hasn't been there most of the preseason. So hopefully those things won't really bother Kansas City too much. But those are other factors why they aren't the number one contender this year.
Right, so the only team that we could say has a better chance of winning the Super Bowl than the Kansas City Chiefs is the Philadelphia Eagles, man. The reigning NFC champions, the team that the Kansas City Chiefs beat in that Super Bowl, but it was a very, very competitive game. One of the best Super Bowls we've seen up until that final 2 minutes, and it's all because of this guy, Jalen Hurts, man. He put on an absolute show, kept him in a game where everyone was saying the rest of the team is what's so great about the Eagles, but he proved he's just as great as well, and that they're bringing about the same amount of talent as well. They got that great first-round pick in Jalen Carter. You should see Jordan Davis take another step here in year 2. Should see Nakobe Dean take another step in year 2. A lot of those young dogs on that Georgia team that won championships in college, now they're looking to win championships in the pros, and they have a great nucleus in place. Jason Kelce came back for another year because he knows this team is capable of winning championships, and that's exactly what a lot of people expect them to do. Now, of course, you've never seen a team repeat in the NFC East in like 20 plus years, so they have that going against them. They got Super Bowl hangover going against them. They got a lot of factors that we considered, but when you think about it, when you have a leader like Jalen Hurts, a guy who has all the intangibles, he has the leadership you want, he has the character that you want to be your face of the franchise, to lead that locker room past all this bullshit and narratives that can get in the way, that's a great recipe for success and ability to overcome this kind of situation.
I mean, a star-studded team from top to bottom. We're talking quarterback, 2 receivers, tight end, offensive line's ridiculous.
Right.
Defensive line is ignorant.
Right.
I mean, they got 4 edge rushers that could probably start on almost any team in the NFL.
100%.
So, I mean, the pass rushers, they're going to keep a lot of people fresh this year. And the only thing unfortunate for the Eagles this year is they probably have the toughest schedule they've had in the last 3 to 5 years. Even though the NFC is very weak, they have a very, very tough schedule this year. But they're going to be battle-tested. They're going to be war-ready going into the playoffs, and I think they're going to handle business once again. The only worries about them is they're young at the linebacker room. They're young at safety as well. Reed Blankenship, Nakobe Dean. They got a lot of guys that have not played a lot of snaps in the NFL, but they still have great and elite players around them. So as long as they can mask some of those players and just make sure that they're not getting picked on too much, then they should dominate again, really, throughout the whole stretch.
Absolutely. So this list isn't necessarily about the teams with the highest ceiling. It's just who's the most likely going to be the Super Bowl champion when the season's all said and done. If we want to talk about ceilings, you could throw the Jets in there, you could throw the Dolphins in there, but they have obvious holes and, you know, X factors that could lead them to not being a Super Bowl contender. And so that is why we have this list, the top 5 contenders for the Super Bowl here in 2023.
But before y'all go, make sure you smash that like, tap that subscribe, because we're coming back every single week with some fire-ass content. Peace.
Absolutely. See you next time.
Deuces.